Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the mornings. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Time for another show. And it was pointed out to me recently, we've missed a couple of them. But Scott pointed out, I guess like the whole week or the whole neighborhood of whatever the hell day we're in right now. Palindrome dates. It is in the American English system anyway. 5 for May. And like, for instance, today, 5/22/25. That should be the hint, right? The 5s and the 2s, and there's a lot of 2s in this one. So 5/22/25 is super exciting. The same backwards and forwards. All right. So, but apparently, you know, it's like all of these dates in the 20s here. So I don't know. I guess play the lottery every day. And I don't know, you want to throw the number in there or some of the digits from the palindrome numbers in there. It's well worth mentioning, I think. All right, and a note from Justice. Yeah, I'm still playing with the levels of this. You know what I found out? It was really super loud in my ears the other day, and I've been fiddling with it ever since. And now I remember that when I had been using the computer to try to play back something, you know, poor recording of something, I think I boosted it the best I could with the what the hell did I use it? The audio hijack program app, and I put on, you know, like 3x 4x boost on this thing, and I never took it off, and so I've been playing with the levels elsewhere, and I think that's where it was, and I may have overdone it there too, so who knows? We'll go back there and give them a little extra boost, although I think I have it set back to where it once was, or maybe it was set there back in the, you know, in the Skype days, and Zoom is a little different. I don't know. All right, we'll boost it up a little bit and see how we can get things going, and get super excited about it being the palindrome era. And there are many, and they are displayed here for our convenience, thanks to a screenshot that he sent me from ABC News affiliate, 13 Action News. Is that Dr. Amy Action's personal television station? Not sure. Palindrome dates began on the 20th, which was Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, all of these things. Not Monday. Monday's not one. The 20th through the 29th. Because of the nature of the 2s and the 5s and the 5-digit expression of the date there. If you don't put the 05 in there, then it works. What does it mean? Nothing. Can you take it to the bank? You can. They're just not going to deposit it for you. Unless, you know what? Tell them it's Bitcoin. Tell them it's cryptocurrency, and this big mess of numbers is worth $1 million, and they should just put it right in your bank. It might even work. It works better if you're already rich somehow when you get to the bank, but that's exactly when you don't need it. And yet, the Congress currently at work at legislation that does just that, sending taxpayer money, grabbing away through taxation and other burdens, more money from the people with the least of it, but that's the most of whom we've got in this country. And so what they lack in taxation, in tax bill size, we make up for in volume, and then hand it over, of course, to the people who love lines like that, the business folks that are already fleecing everybody left and right. And as people have pointed out, one of the biggest wealth transfers in American history. And gee whiz, who would have thunk it with Donald Trump in office? All right, well, very much to catch up on, including a very embarrassing for America visit by the South African president and his delegation to the White House yesterday, during which basically Trump did the Zelensky on him and sat him down and told him how he, as Justice points out in his notes to me this morning, the black South African president who was imprisoned during the apartheid era, he's the real racist in all of this. And I mean, They came to say, among other things, you have it all wrong about these claims of outrageous, out of control white genocide among the farmers in the rural parts of South Africa. Well, of course, the statistics we read yesterday. Well, one white farmer was murdered in 2024, and that just to me falls short of a genocide. If you ask me, that's less than you think you'll see when someone says, take a look at this genocide. Greg Dworkin, perhaps you have different ideas or different definitions of genocide, and we'll bring you into, well, here we go. Ready?
Ready.
All right. Ta-da. There he is, everybody. And on the down low here, everybody. Happy birthday to Greg Dworkin. He doesn't care about it. You're not lighting candles or sparklers, I guess, but it's nice to note that. Great job completing
I'm a Jack Benny 39.
Yeah, okay. You've had a look at the sun from this spot before. How's it looking by comparison? Would you say?
I'm not a doom scroller, so I will tell you that we'll set aside for a moment the two most important stories of the day. The Knicks blew a lead and the Yankees had a walk-off home run. But aside from that, there were doings in Congress that we do have to talk about. As far as this hijacking of the White House, the South African president was prepared for it and actually diffused the situation. He clearly had studied what happened to Zelensky.
Yes, I mean,
and when Trump was really getting agitated and showing pictures from other African countries showing this is the massacre that's happening in South Africa, and that's true, by the way. He showed
really, all right.
He showed pictures of black women being massacred. I think in the Congo.
Why would you even show those pictures?
And claimed that it was white Afrikaners being massacred in South Africa. It was just completely ridiculous and over the top. But he had it set up. He had video ready to go to show him. It was a clear hijack. And the South African president diffused it with humor. And said, I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you, Mr. President.
Yeah. And I think he
Trump
didn't get the
and
joke.
Said, well, I take it. And it just, the tension went out of the room.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well done being prepared and diffusing it. By the way, interesting that, how many times have we wished that Democrats would be prepared to show, here's the video, look at it. And sometimes, they try it. And it doesn't always work because the Republicans don't care. But even this dummy has got his video ready to roll. Yeah. You're missing out.
Right. So, all of that happened.
Yes.
But let's look at a little bit of a summary of the House. This is Jake Sherman. Might as well pick him. He was up all night.
Me too.
The House has passed a Republican reconciliation package. That happened this morning at about 7 a.m. The vote was 215 to 214 to 1.
215.
Warren Davidson and Thomas Massey, as we talked about yesterday. Massey's always a no. Dr. No. Are no's, along with every Democrat. House Freedom Caucus Chair Andy Harris voted present.
He was out getting free health care.
Wait. There's more.
All right.
Because there were a couple of Republicans. Charles
get rid of him.
Gasparino, if I remember.
Okay.
And Dave Schweikert from California. Gasparino's from New York and was a SALT person. Oh. They both fell asleep and missed the vote.
It's hard to blame them. It's a long night.
Yeah, they've been up
boring
for a day and a half, right?
Yeah.
But the vote was 215, 214. With those votes, it would have been 217, 214. With Andy Harris, it would have been 218, 214. So it was pretty much across party lines. And the reason I say that is that people are pointing out that, 3 Democrats died in office.
Yes. In the same office.
Jerry Connolly, Turner, and Grijalva. Yeah. Raul Grijalva. So that in a 1-vote majority could have changed the type, but no, it wouldn't have, because the 2 people would have been woken up, and the guy who voted present would have voted yes.
We are not allowed to do woke.
We would have lost this vote by 1 vote, even if we had those guys. I'm just saying.
That's why they didn't wake up, by the way, right? They didn't want to be woke.
Well, no, I think
waking them up is DEI.
They wanted to not be blamed for
REM,
this.
I mean. Yeah. Oh, okay. So
It's very straightforward. I didn't vote for that bill.
One eye open.
You can't run
Is
ads
anybody
saying I
coming?
voted for that bill. I didn't vote for that bill.
I was sleeping. You can't.
This bill is so bad that's going to be their excuse.
Yeah. Right. I was drunk. What do you mean? Why didn't I vote for it? I'd been drinking all night. Me and a big pile of cocaine.
Right.
I don't know.
So
it's better than voting for
Barbarino?
this thing. Yeah. Barbarino?
And Schweikert, the sleepers, and Harris,
Sweat
those
hogs.
3 votes would have made the difference, but it passed.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that this is going to be the bill that actually passes, because the Senate's going to have a lot to say about that, and they're not especially happy with it.
Well, they have a
And
lot to say
unlike
about
the
everything.
House, the Senate actually does keep an eye on the market. We'll get to that because it has huge effects on the market. But Sarah Longwell said in a focus group this week, one of the Trump voters called it the big ugly bill, which struck me as both obvious but underutilized.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a couple of Democrats saying it, and I was like, well, that probably won't catch on. But I guess with this Republican in a focus group, it did. They like simplicity. Maybe we're overthinking it.
Yeah. Now, this is from a...
Remember the giant stupid idiot bill. Is that too much? Is that over the top?
Yeah. Now, what it does basically is it cuts from the poor to give to the rich. It's a reverse Robin Hood bill.
There's that.
And it explodes the deficit.
Two great things. Two great tastes that taste great together.
And they can lie to you, and they can lie to their voters and
Yes.
say it doesn't, but it does. And the people who pay attention are the market, and especially the bond market. So this is
Though they're kind of liars, too.
a little thread
Yeah.
from Stock Market News,
That'd be
which
the
is
place
a good
to go.
explainer about what's going on here. And that's why I picked it. So it says, yesterday stocks crashed out of nowhere. No headlines, no Fed meeting, no war. Just one thing, a bad bond auction. So what happened was
What am I
actually
bidding for
deeper
it?
and
Nothing.
more dangerous.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell you about it.
Okay.
So let's break
Thanks.
down the 20-year bond auction disaster that rocked the market. At exactly 1 p.m., the U.S. Treasury held an auction to sell $16 billion in 20-year bonds. Basically asking investors, who wants to lend to the United States? Give us money for 2 decades.
No.
And normally these auctions go unnoticed, but this time something happened. Investors didn't like the terms. They wanted to be paid more to take on the risk of lending to the United States. A lot more.
That seems economic-ish.
Right? So I'd like this explainer because it explains it in terms I can understand.
Yeah, I like
the
it
result,
so far.
The auction cleared at a yield of 5.047%.
Oh, well, there goes my understanding. What was that?
That's the interest rate the Treasury had to offer to find enough buyers. Now,
Okay.
a basis point is 0.1%. So that yield had to be 24 basis point or a quarter of a percentage point higher than they intended in order to get buyers.
Aha.
You want me to lend you money? I want a bigger return. So the return popped up.
Okay.
But it wasn't just a high yield. There's a gap between the market's expected rate and what the actual rate was. And it was big. And that means demand was weaker than anticipated. And at that moment, when the result hit the tape, yields across the bond market exploded higher everywhere. The 20-year yield jumped from 5.03 to over 5.12. I looked this morning, and it's now, that's where it is, 5.12. It was up as high as 5.15 for a while. I expect that to go higher today. And that's how bond markets scream, says the writer. And then the equity markets listen. The S&P dropped 80 points. The Dow tanked 600. NASDAQ slid. This wasn't triggered by earnings. It wasn't a geopolitical event. It's that the cost of money changed.
Yeah,
and what happens
I can see that.
When Treasury yields spike, borrowing gets more expensive.
Right.
The value of future profits falls because you got to pay more to buy. If you want to invest in the business or you want to speculate by buying a house and then flipping it and selling it, it costs you more to buy these things because the borrowing rates are higher.
Yes, that's something that Trump likes to harp on too, and he keeps saying the Fed sucks. They should be lowering the rates, and it's like sometimes they can do that, and it feels imaginary. But here they can actually point to the market and say people are going to demand more for their money if they loan it to us. I can't lower the rate on this, or I'm not going to be able to sell bonds.
Well, that means that companies, let's say Amazon, they want to build a new warehouse. But now it's going to cost more money to build that warehouse because they have to borrow the money in order to do it. Companies can't just pay out of pocket.
I just feel like, Amazon,
they could,
really, what are you borrowing
that's not
for?
what they do.
Okay.
Or the companies that are building, or if you hire a company to build for you, they have to, borrow to, first you buy the wood, then you buy the labor, and then Amazon pays you.
Yeah.
But it costs
now I'm beginning
more to
to
do everything.
The Trump worldview now begins to make more sense as you realize, Trump would borrow money and default on the loan, and he'd stiff the contractors. This is why this stuff doesn't make sense to him, and he doesn't.
Right.
And he just says,
why are
lower
you
the
paying
rates
back? That's ridiculous. Anyway, so a company like Amazon, it's going to cost them more to do stuff. If you're an investor,
they should just buy
and you
what
look
they
at
want
Amazon
from
and you say, well, it's going to
Temu.
cost Amazon more money to do stuff. That means that the profit I'm going to get out of Amazon by buying some of their stock and investing in them is going to be less.
That sucks.
Because they have to pay more, and therefore I'll make less money on them. Or I could just buy treasuries myself. It's 5%. That's pretty good rate, and there's no risk. Unlike stocks, the bonds don't go down once I bought them. I'm stuck with them.
Yeah. I guess
because
that's
if they
true.
do go down, I can't sell them.
I mean,
so I just have to hold on to them until they mature.
There's the problem of we're never going to pay you on that bond. Oh.
So why should I buy stock? So I won't buy stock. I'll buy bond. That means the stock price drops. That means the market drops.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. It's all connected and makes a certain amount of sense. Even
so capital rotates. Investors pull money from stocks, put it into bonds. That's what happened yesterday. And those rising yields don't stop at market psychology. They spill into the real economy because mortgage rates follow treasury yields.
Yeah,
that chokes the housing market. Companies looking to raise money by issuing bonds have to pay more in interest on their bonds.
Yes.
The U.S. the U.S. government, every percentage point increase in yields means the Treasury has to pay billions more in interest. And this is happening not just in the U.S., it's happening in Japan. Japan had a sale and nobody wanted their 30-year bond.
What if Japan held a sale and nobody came?
Yeah. So when investors lose faith in how a government is managing its finances, they start demanding higher yields. And that's what happened.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Don't just drift higher. Sometimes they explode higher. Could be the housing market, could be something else. So we're in bad shape and people don't realize it, but they're going to realize it because, it's like the goods not coming to the shelves. It takes a while, but then it hits and you go, oh, where did that come from?
Why don't you just buy it in Trump coin? Then you won't have to worry.
Now, here's another completely different sign. Borrowers are 60 days late on their car payments. That's up to 6.5%. That's rising. So people are starting to do the Trump thing and default.
Well, they know they can get away with it and possibly be elected president.
Except they can't get away with it. So that's really kind of a problem.
Won't somebody at some point give them a luxury car?
I don't know. Or a plane.
Yeah. I mean, or an automobile or a train.
Right.
That's the one thing no one has given him.
There was a Pew poll the other day, like last year the other day, that looked at how many people actually use cars in the United States. And the answer was 9 out of 10. It's 8 out of 10 if you live in an urban area. It's 8 out of 10 if you live in the Northeast. But for everybody else, it's 9 out of 10 or more. Most people drive alone. And so, what about the people who aren't using cars? Well, 14% of the total, when you look at how you get to work, 14% work at home.
Oh, well.
Like 78% drive cars, and the other, 3-4%, take transit. So if you want to know why policy is the way it is, that's why. If you want to know why gas prices matter for election, that's why. So Americans see a role for the federal government, says Pew this year.
Oh, that's good.
But large partisan divisions persist. 94% of the country says you need a strong military. 94% say the federal government needs to secure borders. 93% say that. Clean air and water, 89% say the federal government has a role. Reliable energy sources, 86%. National parks, 84%. High quality K through 12 education, 74%.
Oh,
Health
these are things we
insurance,
want to pay for?
68%. I'm just pointing out health insurance is popular for the government to like make sure that you have health insurance.
Well, let's do the
That's
opposite.
sort of semi-relevant to like what happened this morning, last night, with that one ugly bill.
Yeah, irrelevant in the opposite. Like, we want more healthcare. Well, how about less?
Yeah, and in fact, there's an MU law poll out looking at a lot of that stuff.
MU, buddy.
Yeah. So majorities are willing to cut the number of federal employees. Majorities are
Too
actually
late.
ready to cut NASA and the space program.
Well, they
But
may
by a
think that's
slight
Elon
majority,
Musk.
they don't want defense cut, and large majorities oppose cuts to grants for medical research, Medicaid, Social Security, or Medicare. Hello?
Every single one of them.
Majorities favor tax increases on those earning over $600,000 a year, but majorities also favor eliminating federal taxes on Social Security payments and income from tips.
I don't know
And
how
a
they
majority
shoehorn
also
tips in
favor
there,
extending the 2017 tax cuts. A majority want more services with less taxes. I just thought I would point that out. That's always true.
Yeah, well, sure. So, I mean, it kind of calls the whole poll into question. Do you understand what
When
I'm
asked
asking
about-
you?
Yeah, when asked about what issue matters most to them, only 4% choose the size of the federal deficit, which is why Chip Roy never gets, anybody pay attention to him.
Right. Well, that's the Republican policy. So, a fairly significant chunk of Americans are going to be programmed not to care.
In general,
Say they care, but not care.
4% is low, though. That means even Democrats don't
That's
care.
true, too.
So the voter, the average regular voter, does not care that there's a large deficit because there always has been.
Yeah, that's probably not worrying people anymore.
And they don't care all that much about immigration. It's like a 9% issue.
It's weird that it is, it has somehow always been the issue of our times. One or both of those things in combination. And
right.
I mean, I guess it's like South African white genocide. It's not happening either.
Here's another piece of it. If you look at
they're eating our dogs and cats.
How you describe it. Immigrants who are living in the U.S. illegally, people want them deported, 66%. But other polls show that what about people who have been here for a long time and are here legally? Then it flips, and it's more like 66% don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
So the whole play with Trump is declaring people like Abrego Garcia crooks and illegal and MS-13 and photoshopping stuff.
Sure.
And hoping that you don't pay attention.
Right. Just, they're these are criminals, so we're getting rid of them. You were sympathetic because they were here for a long time, but now you won't be because I'll tell you they're criminals.
In the MU law poll, only 14% of Republicans name it as the top issue. 8% of independents, 4% of Democrats. 42% of Republicans say inflation is more important. And so this whole thing about the bill yesterday, this is what people care about.
All right.
Now are you ready to play some of those clips? We're just going to have a fun moment with
ready.
The Senate.
We'll call me ready.
And the setup is the Congressional Review Act.
Yes.
Republicans are using this to roll back car EV emissions stuff in California. They don't like the way that California is trying to help the environment. So the Congressional Review Act, which I totally don't understand, goes something along the lines of in certain cases, the federal government can interfere and stick their nose in state business and change things.
Oh, well, it's only because what they're reviewing is a federal waiver for California. So it's federal business. Congressional Review Act is the Congress decides they don't like a rulemaking by an agency and can repeal it directly.
Mm-hmm.
And
so they're repealing a federal agency rule that affects California specifically.
Yes, waivers from something. I forget, but that allow them to
EPA
have. Oh
probably.
yeah, right. Oh, there's a provision in the environmental bill, in the Clean Air Act, that sets minimum clean air standards across the country. But there was a provision in there that said California, because it's like so cool, man, and huge, can ask for a waiver from the EPA, and when they get that waiver, would be allowed to, just for California, have higher standards. You have to read a higher emission standard if you want to, get your car registered and operate it in California. And it probably grew out of the huge problem they had with smog back in the day. And
so while the Republicans were struggling to get their big ugly bill passed,
yes,
the Senate was struggling with what to do about this. And I think we're going to play some of those clips after the break. But
okay.
I want to know. I want listeners to know what all of this comes from.
Because I don't even know.
Part of it is whether or not you're allowed to have a point of order under the CRA.
As you're apparently allowed to dump a bucket of water over the head of the point of order. There's a lot of rain coming down here. Yes. Right. Okay.
So the Senate voted 51-46 that, you could do points of order, but there's a lot of background behind that. So we'll play a little bit of that after the break.
I've never seen a vote on whether or not you could raise a point of order, but apparently that's a thing too. The Congressional Review Act, there's a few statutes out there, rules in the Senate that are set by statute, including, pretty soon, you'll see when the reconciliation bill goes there and everybody says, but reconciliation is not subject to the filibuster. Why not? Long explanation, but the shortest explanation is reconciliation is a process established by the statute, by the Budget Act, and the rules for how you consider a budget are statutory, and they basically said, I'm sick of this stupid filibuster. Let's outlaw it for reconciliation bills. Same thing with the CRA. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. Glub, 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 glub. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show. Underwater here. It's very sorely disappointing. Those gutters are still jammed, and the gutter guys are overdue, and they can't work when it's raining, which is a little bit ironic, but I guess the truth of the matter is that means getting up on ladders and on a roof in the rain, which means you're going to have somebody get hurt, and you don't want that. Right. So we're waiting.
The main thing about getting up a ladder safely, have somebody else do
it. Pretty much it, yeah. And we're in a tall, narrow townhouse. I don't have that kind of ladder. This is a 5,000-foot ladder you got to climb up. That's crazy.
So this is from Roll Call. It's entitled Senate Sidesteps Parliamentarian Widens Reach of CRA. Maneuvering satisfies Republicans who don't want to overrule the parliamentarian. And so this is how it goes. They have a sort of a nice write-up here. Senate took 10 votes Wednesday to approve procedural changes that allow it to take up 3 joint resolutions that would vacate EPA waivers, allowing California to set its own vehicle emissions standards. Got all of that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
All right. Senate Majority Leader John Thune steered
Huge
Republicans through party line votes on a complex set of points of order, motions to table points of order, motions to appeal rulings of the chair, motions to table the motions, and more, all in the service of overcoming a ruling from parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough that agency waivers aren't rules that can be overturned under the Congressional Review Act.
Yeah, that's really at the heart of it. And I read a little bit about that maybe on Tuesday. By the way, no motions to do the locomotion at all, which was disappointing.
Okay, so I got some clips to play, starting with John Thune.
Okay, John Thune, whose picture in his roll call piece is gigantic and very upsetting visually. However, also, by the way, listening to our program is Google. As soon as I opened these up, I got an ad for gutter replacement. So just letting you know. All right, so the first clip is it's Shelley Moore Capito in the chair and forced to deal with this nonsense. Here we go.
Madam President, I make a point of order that points of order are in order under the Congressional Review Act, given sections 802D1, 802D2, and 802D4 are in conflict with each other.
In the opinion of the Chair, the Senate has not previously considered this question. Therefore, the Chair, under the provisions of Rule 20, submits the question to the Senate for its decision. Shall points of order be in order under the Congressional Review Act?
No.
Madam President,
I don't know.
Democrat Leader.
I move to table the question submitted by the Chair, and I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston-Brooks.
Okay. By the way, if you listen really close, if you turn it way up, you can hear the assistant clerk saying, "Here's what you say. Here is what I say. Exit stage left. Exit stage left." Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So the next clip is a better way to handle this. It's from the House of Lords.
Oh, okay. Let's see. House of Lords. Oh, there. That guy looks like a lord for sure. Let's go.
The question is that the question be now put. As many of that opinion will say content. Content. The contrary not content. Not content. Clear the bar.
Point of order.
No, I say.
With great respect, sit down. I must remind the noble lord he is not in the House of Commons. We do not have points of order in this House.
Wow. He's very irate about that, too.
Yeah, I mean, how
That's
dare
funny.
you treat us like the House of Commons? We are the House of Lords.
I love the voting. As many are as approve will say they are content with this. Content. And
right. So, we still have a ways to go
content.
in terms of getting our parliamentarian tricks, in line.
We should vote this
But
way.
if you want to know why normal people don't follow politics, just watch those clips and try to make sense out of it.
I guess they're a little bit difficult. If we adopted some of these things, like those who are okay with this say super chill. Try that. I don't know. Just make it more interesting.
Those of you who are content say aye. Those of you who are not content say nay. The malcontents have it.
Yeah, right. Just say mal.
Let it be written into the congressional
Interesting,
record.
too.
Malcontents have outvoted us 51-46.
No points of order in the House of Lords, which I'd love to know more about that later. But yeah, I mean, I guess they're being the House of Lords. Probably one, they didn't want to burden the hereditary lords with learning procedure per se. And two, that's a pretty closed group, I guess. And they were just like, well, if you're really upset about it, way back when, have a duel, kill one another or raise an army against one another. But otherwise, let's all just be gentlemanly and not interrupt one another.
Right. So what the Republicans basically did is vote to say.
Yeah.
Because you get to say stuff and therefore it becomes the rule or the law or whatever.
They have points of order.
They basically said that we vote approval, content with the concept that whatever joint resolutions come up will be deemed to fit the Congressional Review Act in all of its forms.
That's the real problem.
And so that's the way it goes.
Yes.
And that way
That's
they
it.
voted without having to deal with the parliamentarians' point.
I wonder why they're so afraid of that. They really, the day is coming when they just need to muscle past and say,
Yeah. So the actual votes may be today.
Okay. Yeah, I think we set it up reasonably well if you were listening on Tuesday. If you missed Tuesday, you're just confused. But yeah, the issue here, right, the waiver that California gets, they're like, we don't like them having waivers. Let's repeal that. We'll CRA that thing to death. And then the parliamentarian was saying, waivers aren't rules. They're things that you do under the rules, but the rule is the part of the bill that says waivers are acceptable. You want to repeal the availability of waivers for everybody? I guess that would have been a smart thing to do. But instead they wanted to repeal the waiver. And they basically said, well, we think waivers are rules, and that's how we're going to do things from now on.
So basically, when you're in the minority, you really can't stop things if the majority insists on doing something.
Typically.
What Democrats can, will, and are doing is throwing up whatever roadblocks they can to delay things. But that's about all you can do. Some of them are clever, some are not. In the end, all they do is delay. They don't change the final vote. It's unrealistic to expect that the minority can somehow stop the majority from doing something.
You might get a lucky break here and there, but that's
so
like somebody dies.
That's how this goes. So when you get mad at Democrats for allowing this to happen, when you don't have the votes, you can't stop it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
you
true
may
in
be
the House,
mad
it's true in the
at
Senate.
losing the election is what you're mad at.
Yeah, exactly. So there are other ways, of course. So we talked about how the House of Lords, deals with it.
Right.
I sent
Sit down.
David a clip that I don't think plays well, so I just really sent it for him, but maybe in the later roundups he can have the link.
Yeah,
but
you'll be able to see it.
The video of a Taiwanese parliament member physically grabbing the bill, stealing the bill, and running away with it, and running out the door so that
I told you the papers are important. That's something. We have not tried that one.
Yeah.
We've tried
so
walkouts.
David's often talked about the fact, well, show me where they actually put it on paper and delivered it to the proper place. Otherwise, it's not final. Well, this guy said, I was listening to Kagro in the morning. I know what to do.
Right.
Try and catch me.
He
it's
figured
really
it
pretty
out.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
He's younger than a lot of the other members there and a lot more fit. So, he's playing rugby with the bill.
Oh, have you
and pushing the older members out of the way, breaking out of a scrum, and he scores.
It was a drop goal, and it works. You just grab the bill and then kick it through the uprights. 3 points.
And this happened on May 17, 2024. It's not an old story.
Cool.
It was the block reforms that aim to increase parliamentary oversight, including criminalizing false statements by officials. This guy didn't want that, so
I guess
his party opposed it, so he decided to take matters literally into his own hands.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking it's too bad I don't have this.
I'm just imagining Chuck Schumer trying to do this.
I was thinking I could get like a Simpsons clip of the guy going yoink. That's yoink is out of order. I'm sorry. No yoinking.
Anyway, I'm going to finish up with one more piece from the
law
poll, and then I'm going to tell you about some Virginia polling because, we love Virginia, and we love the people that live in Virginia.
Yeah.
A majority of independents disapprove of Trump's handling of every issue, with border security at best, net approval, and inflation the worst.
Okay.
And Craig Gilbert from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel says a new National Marquette poll, that's what this was, shows softening of Trump support among Republicans. They're not as enthusiastic in their approval of Trump as they were in January. A sizable minority is unhappy with Trump's handling of inflation, tariffs, and the economy. I mentioned that because of what happened late last night and this morning with this one ugly bill, because that's going to get worse. During the first months of Trump's term, about a quarter of the strong Republican approvers have become somewhat approvers, meaning the support is more tempered. And a sizable minority is unhappy.
Yeah, you could hear them in the background there. As an autoplay ad came up, but they were unhappy. They were not content.
Meanwhile, let's move to Virginia because a lot of people.
I think you all should.
You did.
Come on, we'll have a party.
There were 2 polls out. Of course, they show choose your own adventure stuff. Do you want the bad poll or the good poll first?
Good.
Good poll.
Yeah.
Roanoke College.
Hey.
They have a good poll.
It's far away, but, it's nice. There.
Abigail Spanberger for governor, Democrat, 43. Winsome Sears, Republican, 26. Undecided, 28. Trump approval, 31. Disapprove, 65. Youngkin, approve, 46. Disapprove, 48. That's the first poll I've seen that has Youngkin at a negative.
Right. What about Youngkin's vest? That poll's better.
It does. Seems like a lot of undecided, said Sam Shirazi, who's posting it, because there's 28% undecided, but really tough Trump and Youngkin numbers.
Undecided about the upcoming
Spanberger
race.
versus
Okay,
Sears.
because undecided about whether they like Youngkin doesn't matter.
No. And for Trump, that's not.
Right.
Now, here's the bad poll. I don't mean bad for Spanberger,
All right.
although it's not clearly as good as the one I just read you. But Harris X is just a bad pollster.
Oh, they do a poor job in their work.
They do a poor job.
We're not
of polling.
content with their work.
They're not content.
Yes.
Spanberger, 52. Sears, 48, or Earl Sears, if you prefer. That's what she calls herself.
Does she?
52-48.
52,
Trump
48.
approve 44,
Get
disapprove
outta here.
56. Even in this Trump-friendly poll, he's underwater. This one has Youngkin approve 54, disapprove 41. There's my control of how good the poll is.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, in the good poll, in the good pollsters poll,
Roanoke.
Youngkin is even, slightly underwater. And in this one, he has a huge approval. Even in that, the closest they can get Earl Sears to Spanberger is 4 points.
Yeah.
So if you split the difference,
not
she's trailing by
popular.
8 or 9. And you know what? She's going to probably be closer to the Roanoke poll. She just came
I
out
hope so.
basically and said, I'm against same-sex marriage, by the way.
Yeah. Great.
She said that in writing. I mean, there was a bill to codify it in Virginia.
Put it on a cake.
And
Wow.
she was required to sign it, and then she had a handwritten note saying, I have to sign it, but I don't agree with any of this. I'm morally opposed to what I'm doing here.
Oh.
Which
Well,
meant nothing, but it's in writing, so the point is you can't
Could be
dance
worse.
around it like she did when she was interviewed and said,
Hmm.
I just agree with civil unions. Well, what about same-sex marriage? I'm just trying to make the point that I agree with civil unions. Yes, but what about your stance on same-sex marriage? I'm trying to make the point here that I approve of civil unions.
Yeah.
That was the reproach. I don't think it's going to fly.
No, I guess not. Although, like I was thinking, it could be worse. A lot of other Republican politicians have made their name saying, well, in that case, I'm not signing this thing. I'm holding out. Like, what's her name? The clerk from, and she was a Democrat. The clerk in Kentucky. I just refused to sign your marriage license. She could have run away with the bill, but Sears, probably difficult, wearing heels. A very wise decision not to simply grab the bill and run away with it. Wise for civil society. But I guess she issued the equivalent of a signing statement. Okay, you disagree with this, but I'm glad you signed it. I think. I'm glad you're not simply defying the whole system.
Right.
That's better than we could expect.
I think she loses. The only question is.
I hope so. And the poll says yes. The Roanoke poll says yes. Harris says, no, we want her. But no, not going to work that way. She's not well known, and everything we hear about her is, here's another story about some crazy extremist view she has. So I don't think it's going to work out. Which
so
is
this
fine.
piece is from Michael Podhorzer. Michael Podhorzer used to be the political director for AFL-CIO.
Okay.
So
welcome.
He's
What
had
piece
some
do you
stake in
have?
the game.
Sure.
And this is under his Substack blog called Weekend Reading.
Oh.
I guess he writes once a week.
Well, you read it once a week.
The re-emerging anti-MAGA majority. If voters had known in November what they know now, which could and should have been possible, Trump would have lost.
All right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter for the fact that they didn't and he won. it matters for moving forward. And it just coincides with that MU Law poll saying there are regrets. I read to you last week, I think, a G. Elliott Morris piece about how non-voters are starting to move away from Trump. Well, what does it matter? They were non-voters. Well, that doesn't mean they can't be non-voters in the future. And of course, we also talked about the fact that there was this Catalyst piece we mentioned the other day. We looked at the Cook Political Report review of it that basically said that, it's a matter of both turnout and persuasion. A lot of the people who voted in 2020 didn't show up, and if they had, it would have been more favorable to Harris. That's a matter of turnout. But those who did, who flipped from Biden to Trump, that's a matter of persuasion. It's also a matter of persuasion, both who you vote for and that you should vote at all when you're trying to reach non-voters. So for the perennial argument of what's more important, persuasion or turnout, the answer is both. But you have to persuade the people who turn out to vote for you. People forget that part. They just assume it's going to happen. Oh, well, if more people turn out, we win. Why?
Yeah. Well, one of the critical parts.
Persuade the people who turn out to vote for you. Persuasion is always part of the deal.
Right. Or to vote at all. I'm here. What more do you want from me? Get in line and cast the ballot. And do it for me.
So this week, Michael says, we are in the midst of another spasm of 2024 retrospection. Two narratives. Yes. The first is the if only Biden had not insisted on a second term, or if only Harris had listened to me about this.
Right, sure.
And
everyone loves that one.
The realignment narrative, which usually takes the form of Democrats are out of step with the median voter. Republicans have become the party of working class. Crucially.
Yes.
This narrative depends upon asserting that Trump would have won an even larger victory if everybody voted, because conceding otherwise would undermine the portrayal of Trump's victory as democratic and cast doubt on the durability of the conservative realignment and provide encouragement to those advocating greater voter turnout.
And you don't want that? They don't want that?
Well, realignment proponents fear primarily left-leaning interests showing up.
Okay.
So it depends upon where you're getting your
I don't know if is this in the list of the links?
I don't know.
Finding it.
Such a long list. I'll send it at the bottom.
Send it again, and that way I can share it with everybody, and you can all read the once.
No,
I
don't think I did because you
weekend reading.
Right?
Yeah, there it is. It's got a graph in it. God sake,
yeah, it's got a graph, so it must be right.
Yeah, two different colors. I don't really understand this graph, but it's not lines and it's not bars. What is this?
So 4 months into Trump 2.0, I believe we have compelling new evidence for the case hiding in plain sight. Trump's dismal polling numbers are a constant topic, but few, if any, have drawn the most important conclusion about the dramatic shift. These numbers do not show that Trump has squandered deep reservoirs of support or that he's overreached. The polling numbers show that Trump's earlier support depended on voters not understanding or believing he would do what he said he was going to do.
I do feel like we've heard that a lot.
On tariffs, deportations, other issues, Trump is doing almost precisely what he said he would do, and voters hate it.
Well,
including less engaged voters who are supposedly too hard to reach. Therefore, the latest polling tells us less about Trump than it does about us.
Yeah, maybe they read the electorate
Democratic
correctly.
Campaign professionals, civil society, the media. We do not inform voters of the consequences of the choices they have.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I was just going to say maybe the Republicans have figured something out that the safest thing to do, if you have an agenda prepared ahead of time, and they did, that's very, very, very unpopular with the American people, safest thing to do with it, publish it in a book. No one will ever see it. And then you can say,
and then when
the book
comes out, you say, well, that's not what I believe.
Right. True. If anybody does read it, right. Oh, I got to write an article
Project
on what's in this thing.
I don't know these people.
Yeah.
They all work for me, but I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Some of them are my children, but I never met them.
But yeah, I mean, it does seem to work. I mean, and this maybe is like the Chris Rufo school of public relations. His MO generally is, I mean, do what you want to do, but PR wise, instead of his view is don't hide the ball. Tell everybody I'm going to do it, and it's going to be bad. It's going to be unpopular. People are going to hate it, and I'm going to achieve it by lying to you and telling you I'm not doing it, and then I'm going to do it, and then it'll be too late for you to undo it, and we can arrest you for crying about it. And they'll publish that in the paper. That's the plan, and then they'll do it, and Chris Rufo laughs like crazy as it unfolds and works in front of everybody. And a nonstop source of irritation. And we probably shouldn't say so because he thrives on finding out that we're irritated about it. But what can you do? It's nuts that he's able to sit down for a newspaper interview and say, oh no, the plan is we're going to lie because it seems to be working just fine. And they'll print that, and everyone will say, damn it, they're going to lie to me?
And print what I write, otherwise I'll sue you.
There is that, although, you don't even have to.
Going to scare you, but I'll tell you what does scare you. Your boss is my best friend and wants a merger from me. So I'm not going to be the one to tell you not to do that. He or she is going to be the one to tell you not to do that.
But mostly they don't even have to worry about that because it's kind of a scoop, right? This guy just told me his plan is he's going to lie his ass off and watch us believe it, and then he's going to do it, and we're all going to be screwed. That's actually a huge story.
And then he said he didn't say that.
Yeah, if necessary, right?
Well, it's right here in the video. Yes.
Yeah.
You're lying anyway. The current backlash against Trump is exactly the outcome we'd expect, says Michael. To see if my long-standing argument is true, America has an anti-MAGA majority.
I can't believe he proved his own thesis. That's crazy.
The trouble is, it's not necessarily a pro-democratic one.
Oh. Well, that's true.
Against Democratic Party, capital D. Contrary to conventional wisdom, Mary, quite contrary, I am not content. The reality of American politics today is not realignment.
No.
It's been a de-alignment from both parties. G. Elliott Morris wrote about this as well. There was a whole piece
now you're just making stuff up
about the opt-out folks, which is consistent with this. Voters, distrustful of institutions, clamoring for substantial change that neither party is delivering, have punished incumbents in 9 of the past 10 elections.
See?
Democrat, Republican.
Here in this country.
You get for your presidential. Despite this, otherwise disaffected voters have turned out in unusually high numbers to defeat MAGA candidates since 2017. That they didn't do so in 2024 in sufficient numbers. There was not a sufficient second, third, fourth, etc. Signaled not a shift in their basic values, but a reduced belief in the credibility and seriousness of the threat, combined with greater disappointment in a Democratic Party they correctly saw as defending broken institutions. One clear example of that you can debate up the wazoo and call it what you will. Democrats in Congress are old.
Yeah.
That's not the best way to reach younger voters.
I guess. I thought that they might think they were cute. She's so cute and old and wrinkly. Let's listen to her. No?
This is not a sustainable trajectory for Democrats, and more importantly, for what's left of American democracy. But we'll never find our way out of this wilderness if we lie to ourselves about where we are now, or follow the same leaders and maps they have by responding with little more than lip service to the repeal of our hard-won freedoms by the Roberts Court or the MAGA fascism. It's all bad, but clearly a memo from Research Collaborative gives a thorough rundown of recent polling showing the backlash against Trump's agenda. His 2 strongest issues, immigration and the economy. 52% of Americans now agree Trump's a dangerous dictator whose powers should be limited before he destroys American democracy. 52% of likely voters and 55% independents support impeaching him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, oh, he's like super popular. You can't do these things. Yes, you can. You have to have a plan. You have to have the majority. You have to have the votes. You
don't want to say don't do it because
but you can approach these things.
Okay.
Right? It's just you have to do it in a smart way. You can't introduce impeachment articles now.
Right. I mean,
it's not
you
going to
can,
work.
but
You don't have the majority. It's going to be tabled, and you'll never see it again. And
that's
what did you
okay.
accomplish?
Maybe that's all right. Every once in a while,
It's not terrible,
remind
but it's
people
not
that
going to
he's
do the
impeachable.
job.
No, it won't finish it, but that's just like it's the flip side of the coin we were discussing. There's this thing about coins and how many sides they have, and you're in the minority. You can't stop things, and also you can't proactively get rid of the people who are doing the bad stuff.
Right. So you got to win elections to do that.
Right.
Now he noticed G. Elliott Morris's Strength in Numbers piece about a redo survey asking voters how and whether they vote today if the U.S. is holding a do-over. The survey found among Trump voters, 1 in 20 would now vote for Harris. Another 1 in 11 would vote for neither. Only 1 in 100 of Harris voters would vote differently. A bit more than half of those who didn't vote favor Harris 3-2, but they didn't vote, so it didn't work. And so he goes through the numbers and says Trump would have lost the Electoral College if only about 1 in 70 Trump voters in the blue wall switched to vote, if only about 1 in 25 non-voters had voted for Harris, or if only about 1 in 100 Trump voters switched, and only about 1 in 80 non-voters cast ballots for Harris. Some sort of combination of that would have given Harris the Electoral College win. Just pointing out, it really was a relatively close election.
That is true. It's worth knowing.
Trump this time, just in raw numbers, didn't get the same number of votes that Biden did when Biden won.
Yeah.
Not as many people showed up in 2024 as in 2020, in other words. And Trump is not invincible, and he wasn't that popular. It's just that they lost faith in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I guess. And then I saw something else the other day that's something like the most narrow view of the Republican majority comes down to something like, was it 70,000 or less, 7,000 votes across, the exact right districts. 7,000 something votes going the other way means Democratic majority. Thing is, it didn't. So, and this poll, it is interesting too to see the write-up. Well, you're filing impeachment motions, but you're in the minority. It's just not going to work. But by the way, here are the results of our If We Had a Do-Over survey, which we don't have and can't have. So you might wonder why people are changing, wasting their time with that. But it's wasting the time of people who don't have votes in Congress. That's different. Our time is much more wastable, apparently. All right. Well, we've reached the end of today's segment, and I better hurry up and get the music ready to go because it's time. The music is not a happy birthday chorus, but enjoy the rest of your day. But I hope you enjoyed this part too. We haven't wasted an hour of your birthday, have we?
No, I always enjoy this part. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
All right. That was a little slow, but all right.
I mean, I can honestly say I don't do it for the money.
Okay, that's true. Right. We definitely know that's the case. Well, enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of the week. Oh, and we'll talk offline about what to do for Monday. That'll come next. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Now the birthday-free portion of our show, I guess. And we can dive into, you name it. See what we can do. Here, news yesterday, breaking news, breaking our will to live, was the word that, and I don't know what to make of this, but and here this is media criticism stuff. I don't know whether I see the BBC has reported it. For some reason, it's very widely popular internationally. BBC is reporting on it, the ABC, and when we say the ABC, we mean the Australian Broadcasting, what do they say, corporation, company, Cucamonga, I don't know. The Australians are weird. It could mean anything. The Australian Broadcasting. Crikey! Can't believe we're broadcasting. Anyway, but also American press covered word that, how do we put it? The BBC put it this way: U.S. defense officials, and boy, did they misspell defense. You know how they do these things. They didn't spell defense the honorable way. U.S. defense officials confirm acceptance of Qatari plane. Okay, so the one big beautiful airplane that Trump is essentially stealing from the Emir of Qatar, who finds himself with no choice but to hand the thing over at this point. Based on reporting in the last couple of days where we learned that the real setup behind the situation wasn't Qatar saying, you know what would really make Trump happy? Let's bribe him with this plane and then he'll do anything we want. Even though we later found out the Qataris have been desperate to try to unload this plane and have been unable to. And the storage and maintenance costs of the plane are such that it would end up financially being better for them giving the plane away after all. But that was never their intent. Their intention was, let's sell it because we sunk a lot of money into it. It's a luxurious plane. It's a little over the top and stupid. But, the world is now awash in idiotic billionaires. So they figured we could probably sell it to one of them. But the truth is that among the cadre of worldwide global billionaires who would buy a private jet, almost none of them would say, would tolerate this plane, right? None of them say, I travel with an entourage so large that a 747 would be a good idea. Very, very, very small market for that. You got to be fabulously wealthy and have a legit reason for traveling with, 80 people. And that is a very small number of people in the world. Like the business tycoon types probably just say, I just can't fill the plane. There's just no need for it. Even if I just bring my friends to come to a party wherever I go, it doesn't make any sense. Steve Martin would want this, as in The Jerk, right? Traveling with his fancy friends and his own disco. That's about it. So royalty, and then that's it. After that, government leaders, the governments of the world that could legitimize for their constituencies spending this kind of money on a plane would be embarrassed to have a plane decorated this way, generally speaking. But we're in luck, as Qataris would say. We have a monumentally stupid, vain, and ostentatious idiot as president of one of the countries that could pay the money that it would take to buy this thing. Everybody else just says, give me a Gulfstream. They're faster. They're in fact, in many ways, more luxuriously appointed, and it costs a lot less to maintain, to fly, everything. And everybody I need to take with me going anywhere fits on one, even a big one. So 747 market, very, very small. They thought, okay, Donald Trump is an idiot. He'll buy one. Let's fly the plane, which, again, we're the Emir of Qatar. Where does our plane spend its time? Qatar. We fly other places, but they flew it to West Palm Beach, Florida. Of all the places they could have gone in the world, they flew there because we heard there's a giant idiot with access to tons of money. Not his own necessarily, but he could extort the money out of other people and buy this plane, or steal it from the United States government and buy this plane. Fly it to West Palm Beach, invite him to come take a look. The whole point was to sell the thing. And then the news story of the last couple of days was Trump's actually was saying, just basically dropping hints. It would be great giving me this plane. That would be awesome. I love this plane. But I guess even he knew that it would look ridiculous for the United States to buy this plane. And then even if the United States government bought this plane, that means that when I leave office, eventually, when I decide to retire after my 7th term, I can't take the plane with me. We have to make some kind of alternative arrangements. So the arrangement also was supposed to get Trump around the emoluments problem. And it doesn't, But, in Trump's mind, it does, right? An emolument is they can't give me a gift because it would look like a huge bribe. One of the hugest, most beautiful bribes ever, many people are saying. But he recognizes that that's a problem. So instead, why don't we have it that the Qataris give the plane to the United States Air Force? Happy birthday, Air Force. You look great. Here's a plane. Which, for starters, you would say, what do you get the Air Force that has everything with respect to planes? And the answer is a plane, another one that it doesn't have at the moment. Does it have 747s in its fleet that are equipped to fly the President of the United States around? Yes, it does. Do you want another one? No, we don't. Do you want one that doesn't have any of the defensive capabilities or communications capabilities of Air Force One? We really don't. That we don't want. How about one that makes it look like you guys are a bunch of idiots? You're an Air Force. You're a military operation. This one has satin-covered toilet seats in it. Isn't that what you want? I don't know. It really has that, but something like that. Remember, it has a bathroom that's almost a work of art, right? Nope. Not for us. Not for us here in the Air Force. Not for us here in this republic, like small r republic, or small d democracy. It makes us look like we're kidding when we talk about our egalitarian principles. It has to be, nicely appointed because it has to look official and project strength. But what we don't want is for it to look like the boat that the sheikh in Taken is abducting his child brides in, right? That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for something that makes our president look serious, not like a international child molester. However, our president is an international child molester. So, maybe it's appropriate. Anyway, the point is they're stealing the plane. And we're going to pretend that it's being given to the Air Force, and then the Air Force is going to fly it around for a little while, and then the Air Force is going to say, you know what, this plane sucks. Let's give it away. To who? To the Trump library. Sure, right, whatever. Anyway, so the first step in trying to make this stupid thing happen has allegedly happened. And again, Trump and paperwork, man, I don't know. I haven't seen this thing. But yesterday the BBC reported, and I guess the ABC agrees, that with their headline, U.S. President Donald Trump accepts luxurious Qatari jet despite security and ethical concerns. And you already see that there's some ambiguity here. The BBC headline, U.S. defense officials confirm acceptance. Did they accept it? And that's how they're in a position to confirm that now, I know we accept it. I know it was accepted because I accepted it. Or did U.S. President Donald Trump accept it, and the Defense Department said, yep, he accepted it. And if he accepted it, what happened to giving it to the Air Force? Is he accepting it on behalf of the Air Force? I thought it was not supposed to, exclude his involvement in order to pretend that it's not really an emolument. And remember, that's the claim here, right? That an emolument is a gift to me, or as he would say, a gift to me. And this isn't a gift to me. It's a gift to the Defense Department. So it can't be an emolument for me. What about when you take it? Well, again, that too isn't going to me. It's going to my library. All right. Not really all right. But anyway, all right. So BBC's reporting yesterday, short and sweet. Minus the pop-ups. Mike Wendling reporting it this way. The U.S. has accepted a plane. The U.S. did it. Good job, U.S. Accepted a plane intended for the Air Force One fleet from Qatar, a gift that has sparked criticism, including from some of President Trump's biggest supporters. The Secretary of Defense, has accepted, this one says, a Boeing 747 from Qatar in accordance with all federal rules and regulations, except the important one, which is the Constitution. Not in accordance with that, but, again, here the role of the Pentagon spokesman, Sean Parnell, is, what's the real situation? It is not, in fact, in accordance with all federal rules and regulations. that would start a firestorm. Sean, we're not going to say that. How about you get out there and say it is in accordance with all federal rules and regulations? And a significant portion of our voters and others will say, well, it seems wrong, but officialdom has said it is right. So who am I to argue with a guy in a suit with a microphone? So the plane will need to be modified, as we learned, before it can be used as part of Air Force One. That's an interesting way of putting it. They were a little clearer a minute ago when they said a part of the Air Force One fleet. And remember, there are 10 planes that they use regularly for transporting the president of the United States wherever it is he's going. Whichever one he's on at the moment is designated Air Force One. The others are standbys, and sometimes they rotate in, sometimes they rotate out. Good reminder. Anyway, the White House insists that the gift is legal because Pam Bondi was willing to sign a piece of paper that they mocked up saying, no, yargle bargle, blah, 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 party of the first part. It's legal. That's it. I sign it. I'm the Attorney General. Newspapers are forced to report that the Attorney General of the United States, previously considered to be a serious position in government, has said that this is totally legal. And as you know, ordinarily, you don't fill the Attorney General role with just a bunch of schmucks off the street. You get legal scholars, people of standing, people with gravitas to fill the role, minus about, 60% of the people that they have filled this role with in the last 20 minutes or so, or 20 years or so. But I said 20 minutes because I got one eye on a note from Justice that says there's an interesting development happening here on a very different subject. So perhaps we'll shelve that for just a moment, but I'm compelled to take a look at some point. Anyway, so yeah, basically a bunch of Trump flunkies who were told, I will spit roast you in the backyard of the White House if you don't tell everybody this is totally legal. Sign a paper that says it's totally legal. I'll run around saying the very important person, I'm not a lawyer, says it's totally legal. And that's the extent of the cover. The plane is a gift from, of course, the Qatari royal family, estimated to be worth about $400 million. Because it's the BBC, they then tell people, that's 300 million pounds, by the way. The White House says that the new plane will be transferred to Trump's presidential library at the end of his term, as if he had a library. It could require years to fit with additional security systems and upgrades designed, or rather required, to carry the president, including the ability to withstand an electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear blast and to refuel mid-flight. The Qataris slumming it with us, the rest of us here on the ground, when they want to refuel their jet. Mark Kansian, a senior advisor with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Defense and Security Department, which the BBC, because they're citing the name of this center, which is in the United States, spelling it with an S, defense, says, this guy, and you can believe him because of the S spelling, that costs of retrofitting could easily run to $1 billion, which is 750 million pounds. Justifying transfer a week ago, and again, that's the word is doing too much work here. Justifying the transfer a week ago. No, what Trump says to justify the transfer doesn't justify the transfer. He was attempting to justify the transfer. He was trying to, say things that would make people believe that it was justifiable, but no. What did he say? They're giving us a gift. That does not even do a good job of trying to justify the transfer. The president has also said it would be, quote, stupid to turn down the plane. The U.S. Constitution has a provision known as the Emoluments Clause. It, in fact, has two, but the International Foreign Emoluments Clause is the one we're talking about here, which prohibits gifts to public officials, like, president, from foreign governments, like, Qatar, without the permission of Congress. It's important. even though nobody knows what to do about it. The transfer has not received congressional approval. That is true. So you would think problematic, right? But remember what Greg told us at the beginning. The completely different sort of thing, right? The Congressional Review Act, well, you can use it to repeal rules. All right, we're going to use it now to repeal this waiver. Yeah, no, not waivers, rules. Well, it feels like a rule. It does a thing that kind of is the sort of thing that people think of when they think of rules. Yeah, but it isn't one. Well, we declare it to be one. And we're going to repeal now. All right. Well, what about this? Has this plane received congressional approval? No. So then it's unconstitutional, right? Well, it hasn't received disapproval. That's exactly where we stand in all this right now. And Chuck Schumer, I don't think, doing us any favors in this, but I'll tell you about that in a second. The president has argued that the plane transfer is legal because it's being given to the Defense Department, not to him personally. He also insisted he would not use it after leaving office, which makes me feel so much better about spending $1 billion to build this thing out. And I also think he's lying his ass off. Of course, there's no plane he would rather use. It's possible that he won't use it if he can't find suckers to pay for maintaining and fueling it. And it's his intention to find ways to make you pay for it. I don't think he wants to insult his donors by flying around on their dime. He wants to take your tax dollars and use it. Anyway, the current Air Force One fleet includes 2 747 jets, which have been in use since 1990, along with several smaller 757s. So, you know, cool, right? Anyway, Trump hates the ones they've got because, I don't know, something, he wants newer ones. He's expressed displeasure. He's not content with Boeing taking their time in building the new ones. Trump surreptitiously visited the Qatari plane in Palm Beach near his Mar-a-Lago resort just a few weeks after the start of his second term in office. It was like top of mind for him. The president insists there is no quid pro quo involved, and the plane is a simple exchange between two allies. What is the exchange? Well, they're giving us a plane. And in exchange, nothing. Huh? So then not really much of an exchange, is it? Anyway, here's him saying more lies about the stuff. Then Sheikh Al-Thani also says, there's no thing going on here. We're just giving it away because it's expensive for us to maintain. We just want it out of our hands. All right, so then there's a little bit of criticism elsewhere. The Australians have what to say about it. They put it, let me see if there's any contradiction in this here. I'm not sure whether there really is. U.S. President Donald Trump accepts luxurious Qatari jet despite security and ethical concerns. The U.S. Air Force has been asked, by whom, I wonder, to find a way to rapidly upgrade a luxury jet accepted as a gift from Qatar for it to be used as a new Air Force One to transport President Donald Trump into the sun, I hope, but I don't think it has that capability. The Boeing 747 jetliner, so luxurious that it's known as the Flying Palace, has been accepted by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth after the president visited the country last week. So Hegseth, I guess, must have put his name on some kind of paper, or maybe auto-penned it, or got drunk and spilled whiskey on it, and it stained the paper in a form that looked like his signature. I don't know. Though the headline says U.S. President Donald Trump accepts, but this is just the Australian broadcasting conglomerate, I don't know, saying the unitary executive is in effect here. Hegseth did the accepting, but that's basically tantamount to Trump accepting it because reasons. And they're right. The Boeing 747 jetliner, so luxurious it's known as the Flying Palace. Oh, we did this one. Qatari officials denied initially that the jet was being gifted and instead called it it's a possible transfer of an aircraft for temporary use as Air Force One. with no money in exchange for it. So that's kind of a gift. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said DOD will work to ensure proper security measures and functional mission requirements are considered. Now, because the Australians are reporting at this time, Democrats have estimated that it would cost more than $1 billion to convert the plane. How much is that in Australian dollars? 1.55, in fact, billion Australian dollars, which just goes to show what a good deal it is that we're doing it here in the United States. If we were doing it in Australia, it would cost us an extra $500 million. Anyway, legal experts have also questioned the scope of laws relating to gifts from foreign governments that aim to thwart corruption and improper influence. Today marks a dark day in history, says Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer. The President of the United States of America officially accepted the largest bribe from a foreign government in American history. The unprecedented action is a stain on the office, a whiskey stain. Hegseth left it there, vomit stain as well, on the presidency and cannot go unanswered. So what's the answer? Just we'll take a moment here to point that out, climb back into Pocket and find us the news. Where is that? It's around here somewhere, I think. You know what? Maybe I saw it earlier on Blue Sky and don't know if I put it aside. Anyway, so a resolution introduced by Chuck Schumer, I guess a resolution disapproving congressionally of this transfer, which I think is kind of the wrong approach, was, you'll never believe it, blocked by Republicans. Now, remember that the Emoluments Clause says that the president can't accept a gift like this on penalty of nothing unless the Congress approves of it. And as we were joking before, well, the Congress hasn't disapproved of it, so we didn't, I guess it's okay. Schumer attempts to disapprove of it, and guess what? The Republicans block it. So that leaves us right back where we started, technically. But, of course, Republicans will also say, well, it doesn't mean we disapproved of it. As a matter of fact, when someone introduced a resolution saying we did disapprove of it, we refused to adopt that. So, really, we have approved of it. Now, that's not going to work very well for people who like logic, but unfortunately, there aren't very many of those in this country, and this is they might be able to make that fly as approval. Now, Schumer, I think, should have introduced a resolution. Well, it's possible he could have gone the other direction. Given that he's going to accept this jet no matter what, maybe he should have introduced a resolution. I mean, we could have done this better back in the old Congress when Trump was accepting various emoluments as it was. They should have, when there was a Democratic majority in the Senate, should have introduced resolutions approving of the emoluments and then affirmatively voted to defeat the resolution approving of it. Then you'd be on much firmer ground saying Congress was asked to approve it and refused. So they definitely disapprove of it, and this is an illegal, unconstitutional emolument. But now that they don't control the majority there, it's kind of a dangerous game. So he went the other way because he didn't want to be on record introducing a resolution approving of the emoluments, especially if, well, as crazy as it might seem, a majority of Republicans might in fact find themselves, forced, maybe their families would be murdered if they didn't come out and vote in favor of a resolution approving of the emoluments, and then it is constitutional and you look like an idiot. So I guess the attempt was here to make, to point to Republicans voting to table and kill the resolution and say, see, they're really for this emolument, which means they're pro-corruption, but that doesn't really help us do anything. So anyway, he tried that and it didn't work. Can you believe it? It's amazing. Anyway, right. Let's try a couple of other things. Oh, you know what? The Washington Post has something to say about it, and they won't have to convert the currency at all. Pentagon says it has accepted the Qatari luxury jet for Air Force One use. Democrats and other critics, those stupid critics, have denounced the arrangement as a bribe, warning that Trump's pursuit of the $400 million jet is a violation of the Constitution, and it is. And anyway, they'll probably get around to the point same way as everybody else. I don't know what we're paying to get. I imagine it's more than $1 billion per Air Force One worthy plane from Boeing. But remember, Trump's logic and all of this is, it'd be stupid not to take it because it's a free plane. Except, it automatically comes with $1 billion bill on top for getting it ready. And you know that there's going to be cost overruns for that. And it's going to take a long time. What they really, should have been doing in this coverage, if you ask me, is reporting, well, Trump keeps saying they're taking too long, they're taking too long, they're taking too long. Trump hasn't been complaining about the price of the new Air Force One from Boeing. He's been complaining about the delay. And to the extent that that's a true concern of his, it's freaking stupid, because taking this plane isn't going to be any faster than just waiting for the other ones to get done. And it's going to cost us an extra $1 billion on top of it. And he intends to steal the thing when we're done. All right. We'll take a break, reset, come back to another topic, because I think even I'm sick of this one. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Roots Radio. We got another segment to go here before the end of the day, and we got tomorrow to bring you some more news as well. Let's try it this way. So the big beautiful, or as what did Greg say that people were settling on? A big ugly bill? I don't know. It's kind of dumb trying to come up with something like this, but it is a horrible bill. But this stupid, horrible, highly damaging, upside down and backwards bill, as you know, I mean, just to start with, just the Medicaid provisions alone are hugely unpopular, as we've pointed out. There's nothing even remotely approaching plurality type support. There's certainly no majority support, and it's overwhelmingly opposed by voters everywhere. So how do you get elected officials who depend on, support from constituents to agree to do this stuff? Well, there's a couple of roads to get there. One, of course, would be abolishing elections afterwards. And at this point, you have to entertain that possibility. But more to the point, I think, is that you have a bunch of ignorant idiots occupying seats in Congress. And there's nothing you can do about that. Being stupid is not good enough and isn't going to do anything in this Congress when they have the majority to get you ejected from Congress. So one of the problems we have is, several hundred morons are allowed to vote on this. Step 2, a great way to get morons to vote on it is to hide the content of the bill from them. That we haven't really discussed enough about that, but we've been hinting at the fact that they keep doing all of these markups and votes on this stuff in the dead of night. And they conducted virtually no hearings on it. And what difference would it make if they did conduct hearings on them in the committees of jurisdiction, because the bill was going to be rewritten in the end in the Rules Committee anyway, which is why they scheduled the thing for 1 o'clock in the morning. And, of course, they voted on it already, giving nobody a chance to look at what's in it. And, in fact, we hinted at it a while ago and might have mentioned this Politico piece, which feels like we'd do well to read a little bit about it. This is from Politico back on the 14th of the month, not that long ago, just over a week, I guess. And the headline here, a quote from one of the Republican members: "First time we were hearing of them." What are they talking about? The GOP mega bill is packed with surprises for some Republicans, most Republicans, really. Senior Republicans on the House Energy and Commerce Committee were caught off guard by Medicaid provisions in their own bill. So, couple of strategies here. How do you do something that's so hugely unpopular? One, don't tell Republicans that you're doing it. Two, when they find out that you're doing it, a good way, you could instruct them, here's what, if you want to be open with them and you think they'll take your word for it, and take your advice, you say, listen, when constituents confront you, you might say to me, Mr. Republican, you might say, but how will I explain this to my constituents who overwhelmingly disapprove of cutting Medicaid? And the answer is, tell them it doesn't cut Medicaid. I don't know if they're going to believe that. You let us worry about whether or not they're going to believe it. That's what you tell them. It doesn't cut Medicaid. They'll never believe me. I'm going to look like an idiot because they'll have read in the newspaper that it does cut Medicaid. Well, first of all, you say the press is lying, and second of all, you say if you want to be like moderate, you say, well, I'm not just going to stand here and tell you it doesn't cut Medicaid. Or even better, if you want, by the way, audience, you should try this one. What if they get mad at me for cutting Medicaid? Tell them it increases Medicaid. Oh, well, I don't know if they'll really buy that. But if you have, are you an idiot? Yes. Are your constituents idiots? Yes. Then tell them it increases Medicaid. I don't know if they're that idiotic. Well, tell them that it reforms Medicaid. It makes Medicaid stronger by implementing these reforms. How? Do you really want the explanation? Just try saying that. If you need an explanation, you say, well, we're getting rid of all the waste, fraud, and abuse, which means that there'll be more money to do real Medicaid stuff for real Americans like you. But they'll be getting kicked off. Well, if they're kicked off, that's because they were one of the waste, fraud, and abuse people. It makes sense now, right? No, but all right, I'll say that. So, okay, if you don't think you can sell them, it increases Medicaid or strengthens Medicaid, then tell them it doesn't cut Medicaid. And if that doesn't work, then I don't know what to tell you. You might lose your election. I don't know, but probably not. Just say it doesn't, and then go when they say, oh, it did cut Medicaid. Wow, that's news to me. I was told it increases Medicaid. Why would anybody say such a thing? Well, Ben Leonard and Meredith Lee Hill know why, and they decided, in exchange for their paychecks, to tell you in the pages of Politico. The House Energy and Commerce Committee was 16 hours into a nearly 27-hour markup. Now you think, well, you said there was no hearings. Well, there weren't. This is votes on amendments to the bill, the markup. And that doesn't mean we listen to people, the public, or even lobbyists about what to do next. This is just us voting on what's going to get in and what's not. So 27 hours of markup, which, by the way, is super accessible for the American people to monitor what their government is doing. Just sit there for 27 hours and watch it on C-SPAN, right? Anyway, they were 16 hours into a 27-hour markup. I don't know if they knew it was going to go 27 at the time, when it became clear that top Republicans on the panel weren't clear on what key Medicaid provisions in the legislation they were actively debating would actually do. That's a little bit more verbose, but they were actively debating this bill. They were voting on amendments to the bill, what would be in and what would be out, but they weren't really clear what the bill would do. So one of two things is happening. Either it was being hidden from them and then they were being given marching orders. President Trump will eat your intestines if you don't vote for this bill. And in fact, this list of amendments. But what does it do? It doesn't matter. What do you want to get your intestines eaten? No. Then vote for it. Or it could also be, you need to tell people, I didn't know what the hell was going on here. They kept it secret from me. If you think that will allow you to escape from the town hall meeting with your life when they come to string you up. Couple that, they continue, with confusion. Look out, don't do that. Confusion from moderates over the committee's complex and controversial proposal, including language to dramatically overhaul the popular health safety net program with new work requirements and cost-sharing mandates, and it spells possible troubles ahead for the domestic policy mega bill central to enacting President Donald Trump's domestic agenda. In fact, it's the whole agenda. That's the point. It could also further complicate last-minute negotiations on a final text before the House is set to vote on the full package next week. They've already done it, of course, as you know, and it passed, especially with hardliners pushing for even deeper cuts. There were some items in there that it was the first time we were hearing of them. GOP Representative Ryan McKenzie, who represents a competitive district that now hates him, I guess, in Pennsylvania, that he just flipped red. Said in an interview, McKenzie is among a group of centrist Republicans not on the Energy and Commerce Committee, which advanced its portion of the bill on Wednesday. Taken by surprise by some elements of the panel's Medicaid proposal, they have requested a meeting with GOP leadership to talk through some of their potential concerns about provisions dealing with the Medicaid and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, as you now know it. And by the way, they were going to have they requested a meeting with leadership to talk through some of their potential concerns. How does that go? We'll give you a meeting. When you get to the meeting, we are going to tell you you are going to have your intestines eaten if you vote no on it. Well, thanks for the meeting about and the opportunity to talk through some of my potential concerns about these provisions. I now know that they are just as bad as I thought, and I'm going to vote for them anyway because of my intestines. Some of these moderates are likely to be in a Thursday morning meeting that Speaker Mike Johnson has planned. It was, I think, last Thursday, with hardline conservatives pushing for steeper Medicaid slashing and blue state Republicans warring over a separate key tax deduction. That's the SALT stuff. Of particular concern among the band of centrists is a new cost-sharing requirement for some Medicaid beneficiaries that would add new requirements for Americans with income at or just above the poverty line to pay for a portion of Medicaid services. That was a new element that had not been discussed with us before, said McKenzie. Another centrist House GOP lawmaker Sunday night remarked that they expected that there would be problems with the final list of Medicaid overhaul proposals being pitched. And there were. But they also love their intestines. Energy and Commerce Republicans rolled out their legislation late Sunday night. Again, why? Anyway, that they claimed would, produce massive savings, $301 billion over a decade, according to the Congressional Budget Office, part of a broader Medicaid overhaul from the committee that would lead to 7.6 million, minimum, people going uninsured, according to a partial estimate from the nonpartisan scorekeeper that now ranges up to, 13.7 million, possibly, losing their insurance. You get the idea here? Republicans then they argued back and forth about this whole thing. Able-bodied Americans and immigrants to the country illegally who should not be entitled to government health care coverage, they should be cut out. Energy and Commerce needs to cut $880 billion in total from the programs under its purview. Why is that the number? How did it come to that? I don't know why they picked that number necessarily, but this goes back to the thing I was trying to explain quickly with Greg about reconciliation and the way the different committees deal with it, right? The Energy and Commerce Committee needed to cut $880 billion from the programs under its purview, including Medicaid. Why? Because they have been handed instructions by the, remember, not very powerful Budget Committee to do so. The one place the Budget Committee has some real serious power is, on the budget and in reconciliation. We are under this command find $880 billion in cuts. Why? Because the Budget Committee told us to do so. And if we don't do it, then the bill that we produce, no matter how big and beautiful we say it is, technically, if they follow the rules, wouldn't be permitted protection from the filibuster as an official reconciliation bill when it gets to the Senate. Unless, of course, 50 senators plus J.D. Vance say, we don't care what the parliamentarian says about that. We say it is a reconciliation bill. They can do it that way. But if they were looking for legitimacy, and why not? We love cutting Medicaid. Oh, no, we hate cutting Medicaid? Oh, all right. But we love our intestines. Now we're talking. All right, $888 billion worth of cuts it is. As it turns out, the legislation would also disqualify Americans from getting health insurance at lower costs through the Affordable Care Act marketplace if they otherwise qualified to receive Medicaid but failed to meet new work requirements, something that appeared to catch key GOP members of the Energy and Commerce Committee by surprise. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, members of both parties slogged through the wonky details of a provision that would add federal work requirements as a condition of enrolling in the safety net program. And at one point, a committee aide was asked to weigh in on the matter and confirm the GOP draft bill would, in fact, prevent low-income Americans from getting subsidized marketplace insurance plans if they didn't meet these new, more stringent Medicaid work requirements. The discussion of what the work requirements would do began with a question from it's AOC, who asked Energy and Commerce Chair Brett Guthrie why people under the Republican proposal would be prevented from buying into the ACA plans at a subsidized rate. And Guthrie replied, I don't know of anyone who would be prevented from buying that. I don't know the answer about the ACA. Oh, thanks. That's great. Now we have to vote. Representative Diana DeGetti of Colorado, the Health Subcommittee ranking member, fired back, if you don't think anybody would be bumped off, why do you have that provision in the bill? And that's when Representative Frank Pallone of New Jersey, the full committee ranking member, stepped in. The CBO assumed exactly what you said. If I'm kicked off Medicaid because I didn't file the paperwork, which is what the CBO says is the main reason why people are kicked off, not because they're not eligible, but because they mess up the paperwork, then the CBO assumed they would naturally then go to the ACA marketplace, the exchange, and buy a subsidized policy, and therefore there'd be no savings, said Pallone, directing his comments to AOC. Republicans want to meet this draconian cut, so they have to say to those people, you can't go to the marketplace, otherwise there would be no savings. Representative Morgan Griffith, Republican of Virginia, said he's the panel's Environment Subcommittee chair, thanked Pallone for the explanation. Thanks for you. I'm glad you know what's in the bill and how it works. The people would have an option to go to the ACA plans, if I understand correctly. Pallone interjected, I guess, no, you don't. The bill says you can go to the marketplace and pay full freight, but you can't get the subsidy. They can't afford the full freight. Guthrie then asked the committee counsel to clarify the provision, at which point the counsel explained that if a person is eligible for Medicaid but fails the proposed Medicaid work requirements, they would indeed be ineligible for the subsidized marketplace plans. The broader exchange prompted attacks from Democrats outside the committee, as you would expect. At this point, I'm going to jump out of here and just point out this whole mess is meant to demonstrate that the Republicans didn't get a chance to read the bill, didn't want a chance to read the bill probably, didn't care that they didn't get it, that chance at all, and as a result, didn't know what the bill did while they were voting on it, and still don't know, and still don't care. They're concerned about their intestines or faces, depending on what you think will be eaten here. So that's important. And you should know that. And you should also need to know a little bit about what else is going on in other sections, the other parts of the government, the other branches of government. There's a couple things we want to add to the broader picture here. Let's see if I can shoehorn the right ones in here. So, of course, they'll be passing these provisions and unleashing this unknown into the world that could just throw 13 million people off their health care and mean that there's, roving tuberculosis running around. And you won't know much about it because one of the things that is sitting out there, I'm going to have to just kind of give you the headline overview of it from NPR. Diseases are spreading, not just tuberculosis, lots of them. But the CDC isn't warning the public like it was months ago, when it worked. Let's see. Chiara Eisner reporting this for NPR. To accomplish its mission of increasing the health security of the U.S., the CDC states that it, quote, conducts critical science and provides health information to protect the nation. But since Trump's administration assumed power in January, many of the platforms the CDC used to communicate with the public have gone silent, an NPR analysis found. Now, you might be thinking, oh, yeah, well, they're afraid that Dodgy might fire them if they bring bad news like, hey, everybody's got tuberculosis. But it goes beyond that because they were already fired even before they attempted to tell anybody about the diseases that were spreading. Get this. Many of the CDC's newsletters have stopped being distributed, workers at the CDC say. Health alerts about disease outbreaks previously sent to health professionals subscribed to the CDC's Health Alert Network haven't been dispatched since March. The agency's main social media channels have come under new ownership of the Department of Health and Human Services. Emails reviewed by NPR show, and most have gone more than a month without posting their own new content. Public health functions best when its experts are allowed to communicate the work they do in real time, and that's not happening, said Kevin Griffiths, who served as the director of communications at CDC until March and then I guess got dodged out of town. That could put people's lives at risk. That's true. And lots of people are afraid of speaking out if they are still employed because they will find very quickly that they are not. But there's an excerpt in here that I saw pulled out on social media the other day that was particularly astonishing. On top of all of that, some of these communications channels that normally go out to healthcare professionals and like things like CDC alert, there's Ebola all over the place. Everybody should beware, right? Stuff like that, like you see in the movies. Turns out that those things are, password protected channels of communication that are only supposed to be used, by serious people to make serious alerts. Now, I don't know. They handed it over to Republicans from the Trump administration, so they're not very serious. But even if they wanted to, send out a hoax email that's, either that Biden coughed on everybody and gave them the Ebola, they can't do it. Why is this? Because the passwords for these accounts that generate these official newsletters and official alerts are all contained in a encrypted and password protected Word document left, created by the people who work at the CDC. And it's a limited access to that file. And Dodgy fired everybody who knew the password to the file with all the other passwords in it. That's where we are. So you'll never find out about the tuberculosis until it's too late, and you've got it. That's a pretty good plan. How interesting. Well, if you think all of this stuff is maybe illegal and unconstitutional, you might be right, but it might not matter that you're right. We've got a couple other things to see if we can share with you. Wow. When we mentioned the other day, let's try over here. When we mentioned the other day the arrest of Congresswoman McIver, but then realized, well, it hasn't been an arrest yet. It's a charging document, but no arrest made yet. It might have worried you because, hey, I thought there was sort of a separation of powers thing going on here. And it's problematic if the unitary executive directs the Department of Justice to say, I want you to prosecute this Democratic political opponent for something, and I don't even care what it is, and I don't even think I care whether you can make the charges stick or whether there are immunities that should be involved here. I just want you to cause problems for this person. Well, one of the ways that they're able to cause new problems was reported by the Washington Post back on May 17th. Trump Justice Department considers removing key check on lawmaker prosecutions. Yeah, are there like rules and regulations when it comes to charging members of Congress? The Justice Department, like, you can do it. Like if you find genuine corruption, gold bars in the person's house, for instance. But how do they make sure that it's not just make something up and charge that person in order to cause them problems? Well, they have rules. Well, what if we got rid of the rules? Now you're talking. The Justice Department's Public Integrity Section is charged. They weren't charged criminally, but they may be later on. But they're charged in the sense that this is their normal job with ensuring that cases against elected officials are not politically motivated. I guess they fail sometimes. If you fire them all, they fail in that mission. The Trump administration is considering changing that. Not only are they going to fire everybody, but they want to bring in new people in a new environment. First of all, we're going to bring in loyal people who will charge them anyway. And second of all, we want them not to feel bad about it. So we'll repeal the rules where it says you got to check with the public integrity guys. Perry Stein and Jeremy Roebuck reported this the other day. Federal prosecutors across the country may soon be able to indict members of Congress without approval from lawyers in the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, the experts. It used to be, anyway. According to 3 people familiar with a proposal that attorneys in this section learned about last week. More surprises for people. Under the proposal, investigators and prosecutors would also not be required to consult with the section's attorneys during key steps of probes into public officials, altering a long-standing provision in the Justice Department's manual that outlines how investigations of elected officials should be conducted. F that, do it my way. If adopted, the changes would remove a layer of review intended to ensure that cases against public officials are legally sound and not politically motivated. Career prosecutors in the Public Integrity Section guided and signed off on the criminal investigations, for instance, into alleged corruption by New York Mayor Eric Adams and then Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. A Justice Department spokesman confirmed the proposal and said that no final decisions have been made. The 3 people familiar with the proposal spoke on condition of anonymity because they fear reprisals. Attorney General Pam Bondi has repeatedly accused the Biden administration of having weaponized the Justice Department and has vowed to remove politics from this nation's premier law enforcement agency. Since being sworn in, she has closely aligned the department, which traditionally keeps distance from the White House, with the president, ratcheting up immigration enforcement and refocusing the Civil Rights Division on culture war fights that go beyond traditional conservative causes such as religious freedom. Federal law enforcement officials arrested New York Mayor Ras Baraka, for instance, at an immigration facility this month, and prosecutors charged him with trespassing. They've since dropped those charges, but Trump administration officials have warned the 3 members of Congress from New Jersey, all Democrats, who were at the facility with Baraka, could be charged as well. Public corruption cases are complicated and be difficult to prosecute. The agency has lost many of its high-profile cases, including the botched prosecutions of former Republican Senator, somehow got botched, Ted Stevens of Alaska, or former Democratic Senator John Edwards of North Carolina. But cutting the Public Integrity Section out of the approval process for lawmaker prosecutions entirely could give presidentially appointed U.S. attorneys more authority in shaping public corruption cases, making prosecutions more political, said Dan Schwager, a former Public Integrity Section attorney who now works in private practice. The reason you have the section is exactly what this administration says they want, to stop politicization. That requires a respect and ability to understand how the laws have been applied in similar situations in the past. The only way to ensure that public officials on both sides of the aisle are treated similarly, we don't want that, is to have as much institutional knowledge and experience as possible, which is why they're getting rid of it. Anyway, you get the basic idea there. Free reign for Republican appointees to charge Democrats whenever they want, and they don't have to justify it to the Public Integrity Section ever again. That's not so great. Add to that, I think I was going to read this one here from ABC News. Something else to worry about in the bill, essentially. some other surprise that people just didn't find out about for some strange reason, and is related to this. Trump's clash with the courts raises the prospect of a showdown over separation of powers. We already knew that was going to be the case. The Trump administration has been pushing back against certain court rulings it doesn't like. That's their way of saying ignoring certain court rulings they don't like. And there's another one having to do with deportation to countries that the people didn't even come from in the first place. Anyway, it doesn't like these rulings. It pushes back in hundreds of cases that have been filed against it in the past few months. But guess what? Tucked deep in the 1,000 pages of the multi-trillion-dollar budget bill making its way through the Republican-controlled House and having cleared it now at this point is what? A paragraph curtailing a court's greatest tool for forcing the government to obey its rulings. Right? Everybody has said, well, they keep ignoring court orders, and it's time for the judges to bring them in and charge them with what? Contempt of court. There are already problems with that, of course, because contempt of court gets prosecuted by the U.S. attorney. Contempt of federal court, anyway. And the U.S. attorney is on the team that's ignoring the court orders, so he's not going to do it wherever they are. Even worse. Tucked away in the big, beautiful bill is a paragraph that would end the power to enforce contempt findings. That's one of the things Congress can do, is it can curtail the jurisdiction of the federal courts. And what if they just say it's now against the law for federal courts to hold the Department of Justice or anybody else that we like in contempt of court? Wow. Well, it's unclear whether that bill can pass the House in its current form. It has passed. I don't know whether this provision survived, but now we got to start looking for it because I haven't seen anybody discussing it lately. Well, let's see. That would be real interesting. Republican President Donald Trump, of course, raised the stakes of this again last Friday when he attacked the U.S. Supreme Court for its ruling barring his administration from quickly resuming deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. He doesn't like it. He doesn't want to see anybody held in contempt, so they're trying to get the Congress to just eliminate contempt.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Well, golly, that would be convenient for them. All right, also convenient is, of course, the fact that Justice Putnam comes up next with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and he's got some things to focus on. One starts off with the Supreme Court. A fed-up Supreme Court schooled the Trump administration on the basics of constitutional law. Well, they might try to eliminate their ability to do that next time around. We'll see you tomorrow.